Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we are speaking with a rookie competitor who started competing in November of 2019 and turned pro at North Americans of this year, 2020. She is an animal lover, vegan, and ambassador for Fit Body Fusion. Off the stage, she works remotely in the mountains of Northern California for a data company as a customer success manager, with goals of being a nutrition and mindset coach to inspire everyone to up level and be their best selves. Welcome to the show, Shelby Brusselback. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you so much. That was a wonderful intro. I am doing very well. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Of course. I'm very happy to have you. And I got to ask you if there is something you do or ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Man, yes, I do. And honestly, I haven't really hit the stage too many times, but this year I have finally kind of gotten into a headspace of manifestation and visualization of what I'm going to do on that stage. So I typically will just kind of get into my head, tell myself that I've practiced, I've worked hard for this, and to just go out there and hit my poses like I do when I'm at the gym or where I'm at home, and just run through it and not to put a lot of pressure on myself and have zero expectations. So I want to have fun doing this. And so that kind of gets me in that headspace of let's just go do our best, because if I put too much expectations on myself, then I get too nervous. So I have to kind of calm myself down with that.
Yes, definitely. I remember you had made a post saying like you used to feel really nervous and shaky, and you even had self-doubt. So now you've gained a lot of confidence. You get into that like I'm ready to rock it type of mentality. What supported you in making that mental shift so you could?
That's a good question. I mean, Ashlyn Brown, my coach, has been a huge, huge piece in my physical transformation as well as my mental transformation this year. So she has been working really hard with me on my posing and just, talking to me about, anything that's going on in my head throughout the week. Like she's always there for me. And I think that was pretty much the biggest contribution as to what changed from having, the shakes before I went on stage to just owning it. So I have to give her a huge shout out for that because she works really hard with her athletes to get in a good headspace like that. But of course I do a lot of mental coaching for myself as well. I could be considered one of those spiritual girls, hippie type, and I just constantly work on my belief in myself. And that's really what it comes down to, is making sure that I've put everything I could into this prep. I have practiced my butt off. I've done everything that I can. So let's just leave it all out there and just go have fun with it. And I think that's really contributed to, oh my gosh, I want to do well, to just doing my best,
Yes. And it's like if you've shown up for yourself every single day without hesitation, then you have no reason not to believe in yourself and the process that you've committed to. So I think it's really awesome that you yourself focus on that a lot and that Ashlyn's been supportive of you. And I think it's really cool you were actually her first pro athlete. And I was curious what it was like to celebrate with her.
Oh my gosh, it was unreal. So she actually wasn't in Pittsburgh with me for that show. We were actually planning on doing as many national shows as I could this year, just because I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think I have the best physique, but at the same time, I worked my butt off to get to where I was and to pose correctly and show all my highlights and everything like that. But, our connection is so strong. So I was FaceTiming her all day. I recorded a video to myself, just being proud of where I've come from and everything that I've accomplished this year, and just to go out there and do my best. And I sent that to her like, okay, this was my note to self. And she sent me one back, and she was crying and so supportive and just so proud of me. And I think that really gave me the wind in my sails to just go out there and have a good time. But yeah, it's I've worked really hard to get there, so I know that I couldn't have done anything more, you know? So it was a good
Yes.
thing.
How's it feel too, like having her, she's a top level IFBB pro, coaching you and now guiding you as a pro?
It is insane. Honestly, it's taken a long time, and it still sometimes doesn't actually feel real that I've accomplished the pro status so quickly. But I know that I'm being guided by someone who has also accomplished so much in her short time of, you know, competing in the IFBB Pro League.
Yes.
So without a doubt, I just knew that I was in the right hands. And that's simply not just because of her credentials, but just because of who she is as a person. So she's super invested in every single one of her athletes. Like, I know she has a ton of girls on her roster, but from my personal experience and the other girls that have been coached by her too, it's like we feel like her only athlete. And that, I think, makes it feel so special, and she's so invested in us. And so it just makes it so much easier to just make her proud and go out there and just be like, okay, she knows what she's doing. She's given me all the knowledge that she possibly can. She also taps into a ton of knowledge from Fit Body Fusion and the other coaches on that team. And it's just knowing that you're in good hands. And, you know, if Ashlyn doesn't know something, she'll tap into Jamie DeBernard. And so we'll constantly all work together to tweak things here and there. And so it just kind of gave me that confidence, like, okay, well, I know that I have a ton of eyes on me, and if anything were to go wrong, it is what it is. We'll take it and we'll move forward and we'll learn from it. But it just kind of all came together so beautifully and so quickly. It just kind of blows my mind. So yeah, it took me a while to really get that I was even at that level. Even into my second pro show, I was like, I can't believe I'm on this stage right now. So
Yes, I can't
crazy.
wait to talk to you more about that too, because you've always been a high placing competitor, and I definitely want to learn more about your journey in respect to the last year, really. So I did want to ask you too, like how, or I guess I should say, what inspired you to switch coaches? Because you had been with a different coach before, right?
It did, yeah. So when I first started with, okay, so let me way back up. I have known about Fit Body Fusion since probably about 2016. I was like kind of aware of it, wasn't super involved, but I started following the team and started following some of the athletes. And the first major pro that I started following was Jessie Palmer. I love her. I freaking
She's
love her to death.
amazing.
So yeah, so I started following her journey around then and just became super inspired, and just seeing her journey, I was like, wow, I could do that. Like, I could totally do that. I just need to get into the right space in order to do that. And so once I did finally get into that space, which was the beginning of 2019, I wanted to be coached by Jessie, but she was on her road to the Olympia, and so she wasn't taking any athletes on her roster. So I was like, okay, well, who else is, someone that I feel kind of connected to via social media? And that was Angela White. So she actually was the one who did my consults. So I talked to her about kind of my headspace, where I was, how I wanted to level up and really challenge myself and get uncomfortable. And we just kind of connected. So I went with Angela, and she was great. I'm the kind of athlete that when you tell me to execute something, I'll go do it. I don't really need, ask a whole lot of questions unless I am curious about why, but I can usually deduce why. And then I realized, okay, Angela's a great person. She's a great coach, and I thought she was perfect for what I needed for that year. But then Ashlyn and I started talking about, midway through my coaching year with Angela, and we just had a deeper, more soulful connection, and she was helping me a lot. Ashlyn was, like, with extra posing and just kind of answering questions and talking to me. And it kind of dawned on me, like, oh, okay, maybe I should be coached by Ashlyn, because I really love this girl and she's investing a lot of time into me, and I'm not even on her roster. And nothing against Angela at all. I think she's a great coach and someone who's awesome for a first, beginner competitor. But it really came down to what type of relationship I wanted to have with my coach. And I really wanted to have a really deep connection where I could feel comfortable talking to her about anything, all of my struggles, all my successes, just be able to text her whenever. And it kind of just dawned on me one day that I should make the switch. And I decided to make that choice. And that was probably January, February of this year.
Wow.
And I went back.
Yeah, it's amazing how some of us just vibe differently with different people. and we
Mm-hmm.
can still be getting great results, having a great experience. And then sometimes it's just that little bit extra and we don't know until we go, right? And we have to trust ourselves to make that decision. And I think it's really awesome that you did, and it speaks volumes to the results you've been able to generate together since then. And you mentioned a soulful connection, and earlier you were talking about how, people would consider you a very spiritual person. So we all know mindset's a huge part of this journey. This is personally like my number one favorite thing about life in general is psychology, but you've shared
Yeah.
your morning routine on your Instagram before, and I think this is really key for developing a positive and focused mindset. So do you mind sharing what you've been doing now and what kind of positive I am statements you've now been implementing to remain open to receiving the new desires and the new results and the new outcomes since, you've now achieved your goal of becoming a pro?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I would say I really started focusing on my positive affirmations when COVID hit because I was actually really stressed out about that. Like, I was like, oh my God, the world's going to shut down. Like, I started like spiraling and like, oh my God, what about my family? What about, everyone? And so, in order to kind of reel myself back in, I decided to, instead of start my day looking at the COVID numbers, that I was going to start my day with 5 things that I was grateful for. And they could be really anything. And I mean, little things like I'm grateful for the roof over my head. I'm grateful to have a job that I love. I'm grateful to have food on my table and my dogs and my husband, just little things that we may take for granted that are in our everyday life. And then you can kind of expand on that as you get better. So I would meditate on that. And, and then it started expanding to, what I wanted to accomplish this year. So I knew that I was going to go pro at some point. I just didn't know the timeline, of course, because the universe kind of has that unlocked. But I just decided to start saying I am a professional athlete. Because before I would say, I'm an athlete, but now I was saying I am a professional athlete. I will be an IFBB pro. I am an IFBB pro. And just those little things that started my day would really set the tone for how I behaved during that day. So hitting my macros, getting my water in, which honestly, water is like the hardest part for me. I love water, so I don't know why it's such a big deal, but little things like that where you can start to accumulate those little wins really snowball into making you feel like a badass, powerful woman. And that is really kind of what set the tone, and it just kind of took off from there. So I just started, imagining it and just manifesting it, and the universe delivered very quickly. So I did my first show was the NorCal show, the NorCal Spectrum Fitness Productions show. That was my second show ever, and that was my first show of the year. I got third place, and that's where I still had my shaky knees. I was nervous. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do well because I placed first in my novice and true novice class in November. So I was like, okay, well, now I have to at least get first place in this class, right? So that's where I started realizing, okay, I need to not put as much pressure on myself, but still believe in myself. And it has to come down really to believing in yourself entirely, like wholeheartedly, without any shadow of a doubt coming in to make yourself think otherwise. So I really just started focusing on that. And as I would fall asleep, I would think about it. I would dream about my routine. I would just think about what it felt like to be a pro, what it would sound like when my name was called. And just those little things really do help the universe align to make that happen for you. So it's just those little things day by day that really added up, and it got me in the right headspace to just give it my all.
I love that. I'm such a big believer in that as well. And I actually wrote a book called Believe Your Way to Badass, where I support people in setting those intentions and setting those goals. And I love what you're saying about the power of an I am statement as well as visualization. And it's not enough to just say like, I'm a pro, I'm an IFBB pro. It has to really be something that changes you on a physiological level as well, where you step into that role, you embody that role. And I like how you mentioned it really sets the tone for your day. And it's true, our thoughts really do have an impact on our behaviors. It's because when we have this identity or we have something that we focus on, we're gonna, as humans, we love congruency and we love homeostasis. So in our mind, we're going to find ways to achieve that. And I know a lot of people listening might be like, oh, manifestation is a bunch of woo woo, whatever, but it's really not. Like, there's like, just from a psych perspective, it's like, if you believe something about yourself and your body and your mind like to balance and have that homeostasis, you're going to find more ways to satisfy that version of yourself. It's just your worldview. Like if someone has only ever used a pen, they're not going to be likely to go and grab a pencil because it's just not in their worldview. It's not the way that they see things. So I'm taking this out of context, but just to reinforce how important and the value in what you're sharing is, because I appreciate you coming on to share. Some people are, they really are sacred about the morning routine, but I love how open you are. And I know part of that is you really consider yourself to be an empath. And I really was curious how you feel that supports you in your evolution throughout, as a person, but also throughout competing, and how you capitalize on it in your life so you can, manifest the way that you'd like to.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And honestly, I felt like growing up, being an empath was something that I didn't really know what the word was, but I knew I was really sensitive, and I was really sensitive to energies, and I could feel the way people were thinking. And like, it was just something that I didn't really know was not, I guess, common. So I was super sensitive as a kid, like crying all the time, just super emotional because I was picking up on all those vibes. And I grew up in an emotionally abusive household. So like that was just not a good time for me. But with that, I was able to really hone in on being able to focus my energy where I needed it to. So I've gotten really good at energy shielding and being able to kind of close my circle to a point where I can just focus on what I need to focus on without the distraction of other people's energies or thoughts or bad vibes or whatever it may be. It's taken a lot of work. Like, I have read a ton on empaths and just what it's like to have that. I call it a superpower because I really do believe that it is something that's extra that we have in us. But I also feel like it's a forward evolution of the human species, I guess, because we are all very intuitive and people don't give us enough credit for that. But we all do pick up on some type of energies. We're all made up of energies. That's really what it all comes down to. So it takes practice to be able to kind of shut that off at times, but also use it to your advantage at times. So for me, it's like I have to be really, really conscious of the people I have in my circle. So the people who, support me or, are around me often, like I don't necessarily want to be picking up on any vibes that don't get me or don't support me to where I want to go. But at the same time, I also use that to really push belief into other people as well, because I can tell when people don't believe in themselves. So I may be getting a little off topic here, but
No, it's great.
I think it's really important to be able to not only lift myself up, but be able to lift other people up as I go too. Because if I'm learning these cues and I'm learning these signals and I can apply it to my life, then why not teach someone else how to do it too? And then they start to believe in themselves and they start to actually see what their intentions are and how to kind of hone in on that. But I might be missing some parts of your question here, but
No.
I just think it's important because I'm able to really close my circle, like I said. So if I'm in the middle of prep and I'm, head down, I'm doing a ton of cardio, I'm lifting forever, and I kind of have to just only have a couple people in my circle who are like, yeah, you got this, you can do it, because I believe in myself, but I don't want any other bad vibes to throw me off,
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand. I think it's like one, also being intuitive from the perspective of reading into other people or being able to feel very deeply is also hugely beneficial to seeing things beyond like the physical realm of benefit when it comes to committing to like your nutrition or to your training, and really internalizing it in a way that is conducive to growth and to your goals, not just like, oh, I'm just going to hit my macros and do my training because my coach said so, or because I want to achieve this physical result, but instead going because it matters to me, because it's important, because it allows me to show up in a different way. And I think that that's really cool that you're able to also draw those boundaries where you need to for your personal life. And I think that that's, going to inspire others who maybe feel the way you do, like, highly sensitive, able to read into and know that, okay, it is okay for me to set the boundaries where needed, especially when you're
Mhm.
someone who people are likely to come to you. But, something we haven't really spoken much about on this show is actually, and it's probably not at all related, but it is kind of branching off of the outside of competing, but also woven into topic, which is smoking weed as an athlete. And I know this is something you've done or you do. So how has it influenced your training, your recovery, your results?
Oh my gosh. So it's been such a lovely tool. A lot of people can think and automatically assume that it's just something we do as like a vice, something that, you know, instead of drinking, I would smoke. But for me, it's really a way to kind of slow my mind down, focus on what I need to focus on. So I do smoke before I go to the gym. So I'll take my pre-workout, I'll hit a bowl really quick, and then I'll go to the gym. And that really allows me to really, really focus in on what I'm doing. I have a lot of friends at the gym, and I do like to say hi to them and everything, but I get to the gym and I want to do what my training program is, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
it really helps with the mind muscle connection, since I had a really hard time activating my glutes last year. And that's like the one muscle group that I need to grow the most, that is the most stubborn for me. So, I wouldn't just be going in and going through the motions. I'd really be going in to this training session like, okay, I'm going to feel every muscle fiber activating with this workout. And so it really helped me hone in on that. So it makes my training so much better, and I feel the impact of it for sure. And it doesn't impact me negatively in terms of like not being able to sprint or do my cardio. It's never really had an adverse effect for me like that. But then once I'm done with my training, I will come home and I'll smoke again, and it helps me get my appetite back for dinner, and then I can just relax for the evening. I really think that it does contribute to a better recovery as well. When I first started with Fit Body Fusion, beginning of 2019, I decided to stop smoking because I didn't want to eat off my plan because munchies are a real thing. But my reverse started so low because I wasn't eating very much when I first started. So when I was working with Angela, we were working on getting my calories up, and I just, I didn't want to stray off the plan because I wanted to be really strict and really intentional. And intentional is something that I really focus on as well. But I stopped smoking, and I wouldn't sleep well. I'd be super sore all the time. And like, I honestly couldn't walk some days after some training sessions. Like, it was pretty brutal. But then I just decided like, okay, if I'm going to be mentally exercising my body for a prep, then I should be able to add in this extra challenge per se of smoking and not going into my pantry and eating everything in sight. So I have been able to get past that and still be able to leverage it as a tool that helps me think better, helps me feel like a better person, helps me have a better outlook on life, and helps me sleep better. So in all those things, it's really such a beneficial tool for me. And I know there's other athletes out there that smoke too, but it's just such a, what's the word? It's just not something we really talk about often. It has a bad reputation, I guess you could say. You do see athletes, representing CBD companies and everything, but it's not as common to see, especially top-tier athletes, talking about smoking weed often. So it is something that is pretty common, and I want people to know about that. Like, some of your favorite Olympians are probably smoking weed, and it's okay. It's totally okay because it helps with recovery, and it's not something that makes us a bad person. And that's what I really want to convey here, is that like, it's just a tool in our arsenal to help us recover and perform at our best. For me, it does that, and for someone else, it may not, but that's okay. So that's really what I wanted to really get the message across in that way.
Yeah, you did so eloquently as well. I appreciate you shedding light on that, because you're right, it's not talked about very frequently, and I can think of a few pros off the top of my head, although I wouldn't want to say their names, only because what if they're not anymore, or maybe they've changed since then. But there's plenty out there who do openly talk about it. I have some friends too in the NPC who do this, or who even do other things, and it supports them. And so I think it's just about doing what feels best for you, being intentional with it, and understanding where it's coming from, and like what's really driving the behavior. And then of course embracing yourself as a person, having compassion, and also releasing that judgment. And I think just you coming on and sharing that maybe will support others who could be being judgmental, but you did bring up something that I was like, oh, that's interesting. Now, I personally don't smoke. I don't use anything, but I was thinking, you know, about the munchies situation. And you mentioned that that was what deterred you in the beginning. And how has it since changed? Because you did at some point decide, okay, I'm going to start doing that again, because it was helping more than it was hurting more to not do it than to do it. So what did you do when you got the munchies, or how did you address that?
Honestly, at first, when I started smoking again, I would smoke right before bed. I would literally smoke, put it down, and get in my bed. So I really didn't have any opportunity to go into the kitchen. And so after a few weeks of that, then I was like, okay, maybe I can smoke a little bit earlier, watch, you know, an episode of my favorite show, and then go sleep. So it was kind of just adding a little extra time in before I did go to bed. And I kind of just came to this conclusion, and Hannah DeVore actually said this on her IG stories probably a year ago.
That's
or
what
so
I was
now.
thinking of.
Prep is
One of
not
the girls
supposed
I
to
was
be
thinking of.
comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I finally was like, oh, you're right. Like, I'm usually hungry between my meals anyways. Like, what's the difference if I'm just a little bit hungry before I go to bed? And it's not even real hunger either. The munchies aren't hunger. It's all mental. So I was like, okay, well, if I can manage my own brain and I can, you know, get around other things, then why can't I get around this? And so it's just like, okay, well, then try it, you know?
Right.
So I just kept challenging myself. I was like, okay, well, just, you know, smoke an hour earlier and see what happens. Like, eat your macros, but, you know, drink your water, and then you'll be set. So, you know, if I'm way out from a show, I'll still drink like LaCroix and bubbly waters and things like that kind of give me that pseudo fullness. So that's kind of what I would do, is either I would leave a little bit of macros to have a nightcap, or I would just drink a bubbly water or drink a regular water, and then I would just go to bed. So, you know, you kind of have to know yourself and know like where your limits are, and just kind of slowly introduce things. And it's just like prep, you know, you slowly cut your macros out, you slowly add in your cardio. And it was kind of like that with weed for me. So it definitely helped. I don't smoke during the day at all. Like, I think that's just a recipe for disaster. So, you know, I just know myself and what I can handle, and now it's no big deal.
Definitely. And I was curious, you said you would watch your favorite TV show, and I'm like, what's her favorite TV show?
Oh man, so many. I would feel like the first one that popped into my head is Rick and Morty. I love that show. It's so funny. There are so many good like psychological nuggets in there that I'm just like, oh my God, like it's just
That's
so good.
funny.
It's so sharp and so witty. So I really like that show. But of course, I'm a real big fan of Friends. I would watch just series of just shows when I would do cardio. So, you know, I started with Friends, and then I went to like Orange is the New Black, and then I watched Shameless, and, you know, all those classic shows. But I do love the Food Network a lot. I love to cook. I love to host, you know, Thanksgivings and other gatherings at my house. So I love watching the Food Network, but I can really only do that like at the beginning of my prep. So I try to focus on other things. But honestly, I love anything involving space. So I would watch like when they still had it on Netflix, it was, oh gosh, I can't even remember the name of it now. But just space documentaries or any other like psychological thrillers or things like that. I just love how the human mind works, and I always want to learn more about that. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's really, really cool. And just, you know, out of curiosity too, you just said you love to cook and even host dinners, Thanksgiving specifically at your house. Now, Thanksgiving is notoriously associated with eating turkey, and you're a vegan athlete. So what's that usually look like for you?
Oh, gosh, you know, so we typically have a Friendsgiving because all of our little friend group here, we're all transplants. None of us are from California, so none of us have a lot of family around here. So we'll all just gather at our house and do like a Friendsmas. So it'll be more potluck style. But I have made turkeys in the past, and I probably will make another turkey this year. And I'm sure other vegans are probably cringing hearing that. But I want my family to eat what they want to eat. I will eat what I want to eat, which is, you know, a tofurkey. And that's totally fine with me. But I still love making food and filling my people's bellies with delicious food. So I kill it. Like the turkeys I've made are freaking awesome. So I will continue to do that as long as, you know, my family wants it. And if they want to have some of the vegan dishes that I make, then they're welcome to do that too. But it doesn't really bother me. Like maybe it should, I don't know, but it doesn't bother me because it's just is what it is. You know, people want to have a turkey, so I'll make them a turkey. I just won't eat it myself.
When have you always been vegan?
I have been vegan for about 2 years.
Okay, got it.
And vegetarian for 2 years before that.
And you were vegetarian, you said?
Yes.
So what does a usual day of eating look like for you, and how have you found ways to, make it work for you when your macros change? And I'm also curious, like, how you work in your cooking skills and it sounds like a bit of a passion or hobby in cooking as well into your preps and improvement seasons.
Yeah, so my grandparents were huge on cooking. My grandpa cooked so he was a firefighter, and he would cook for his entire unit. So I inherited a bunch of his cooking stuff from those days, and my grandma loved to cook. They have cookbooks that they, passed down to us. So that's where it really all started, and it was just kind of a place of gathering. It's a very cultural thing for a lot of people, is you gather with food. And so for me, being able to cook a good meal for my friends and family gives me the most joy. I love it. I love seeing them like what I eat or what I make. And, it just brings me a different level of joy. I don't even know how to describe it. What was the second part of your question?
It was a loaded question, but like, I love the answer you just gave, because I was like, yeah, that's so amazing. And it's making my mind run a million directions. But I was curious what like a normal day of eating looks like for you, and how you work in that passion and love for cooking to your preps and your improvement seasons to make, it meet your macro goals and really enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those people that kind of throws everything in one bowl. I don't necessarily separate my meals, and I don't know why I do this. I really don't, but I just feel like a bowl of something hearty and delicious is just what my mind goes to. So basically, I'll just throw everything in a bowl. Like, I'll have my vegan chicken, I'll have rice, I'll put some like hot sauce or something on there with spinach and vegetables. So that's like a majority of my meals. But to be honest, when I get really, really low on macros, and I got really low on macros this year. So I actually reintroduced egg whites to my diet. And that was just kind of a necessity at that point, because a lot of vegan food it has carbs, fats, and proteins in it. So in order for me to hit my protein goals, but not go over my fat or carbs, I had to have something that was just protein. And I don't think I will ever eat meat again. Just even the thought of it is like, I can't see myself doing that. But egg whites and eggs have always kind of been on my okay list, just because I feel like if I were to own chickens and they laid eggs, I would probably eat them, So that's kind of my mentality about it. But on the flip side of that, I don't eat meat because if I couldn't kill an animal and eat it. And that was really why I started to go vegan anyways, is like, okay, if I can't actually go out there and kill that animal and eat it myself, then I shouldn't be eating it. So egg whites have always kind of been okay for me. So when I get really low, that's really kind of what I go to, and I'll make them either sweet. So I'll do like sweet stevia egg whites with cinnamon, and then add some banana on there and Professor Nuts, which is like have you heard of Professor Nuts before?
Yes, through Ashlyn and Beatrice.
It's amazing. It's literally just protein. So they put some type of digestible fiber in there, and it takes out the carbs and fats, and you just digest the protein in it. So for me, that's like, okay, it's an extra 7 grams of protein that I can add on this, and it really helps me hit my goals. But I do take that out 2 weeks before my shows. But either way, egg whites are kind of on that okay list, and I'll just try to keep things as light as possible in that sense. But egg whites are really the only animal product that I'll add in.
Yeah, definitely. That's, something I admire and appreciate about what you said. It's like you found a way to make it work for you and do what's best for you, and, meeting your goals on all levels. And I love that. I love when people promote that and when they believe in that and live it, as well. So I think that's just really great that you do that. And I also just think it's so cool that you grew up in a family that gathered around food. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask, and I would probably wish that I had. You had mentioned earlier there was some abuse. Now, if you don't want to go into that, that's okay. But I was curious, like, how that may have impacted your growth and development throughout your life.
Oh, yeah. So I'm more than happy to talk about this, because I have grown so much from those experiences, and it's shaped me into the woman I am today. So it was my stepdad. My mom was married to him for 16 years since, well, when I was 3 until I was 19. He was in law enforcement and he was just, controlling, narcissistic. And, I hope that he's grown from that from now, but it was really rough growing up. And I was trying to find, what I liked in life. And there was just a lot of just non-belief in me to accomplish anything in life. And I think that because of that, I have basically been able to give a big FU to be like, okay, well, now this is all the things that I'm doing that he basically said I could never accomplish. So one of the things was he never thought I'd be able to get into college without some type of help or a word in or something like that. I got into college, no problem at all. Graduated, no problem at all. I got my degree, moved on. And then he thought I would never be a good athlete. So when I was little, I was in gymnastics, and this is such a funny story, but I had to do a makeup class one time. So I was in gymnastics for like 2 or 3 hours, I think, like back to back. And I was just sopping wet. I was soaked from all the sweat from just like running around for hours. And I was so mad. I don't know why, but I told my mom, I don't want to sweat. I don't like this. I want to be done. And she literally let me quit gymnastics. And I think about that now and I'm like, that is so funny because like I love a good workout now. And because like my stepdad was like, oh, well, if you're going to quit gymnastics at such an easy level, like you probably won't be a good athlete. So, you take those things and those doubts that people have in your lifetime and you can either grow from them or you can let them, or you can succumb to them. And I'm not that kind of person who's going to let anyone tell me I can't do anything. So, even though I haven't really spoken to him in years and years, that was just something that I kind of had that fueled me to be successful in life no matter what I did. So it's just kind of come full circle in a way that's given me this power and this confidence. Like, okay, you didn't think I could do that, but I believed in me and I believed that I could do it. So here I am doing it and I'm doing it well. So
hell yeah.
That's kind of that.
That's right. I love that. And I appreciate you opening up and sharing that with us too. And yeah, every experience we have definitely makes us into the person we are. And when we make meaning, and it's like there's research that shows that traumatic events or experiences, no matter what, will generate a meaning making opportunity for us. And what we make of that meaning can be heavily dependent on what meaning we make can be heavily dependent on our identity, the way that we view ourselves, the things that we think about ourselves, the way we see the world. And it sounds like you really overcame those negative and limiting beliefs being placed on you, were constantly being told to you. And you were like, I'm going to make it happen. Like, I'll prove it to myself. And I don't need to prove it to you because you're not going to be part of my life. And
right.
I think that's really cool and just really special and says a lot about you, again, your strength. And then you're welcome, of course. And you did decide to get into competing. You mentioned you had been following Jesse, you'd been following some of the sport. Were you already living that lifestyle beforehand?
Not at all, not anywhere even close, which is why it's still so interesting to me that I've accomplished so much in my short time competing. Because I was working for a company for 5 years that demanded quite a lot of our time. And it was my first job out of college. We had to be there from 7:30 in the morning until about 6:30 in the evening, and it was just go, go, go constantly. So I really didn't have a lot of physical or even mental energy to go to the gym. So it was something like I love the gym. I took weight training ever since high school, and I always loved it, but I never really had a lot of direction with it. So it's kind of hard to keep up when you don't really know what you're doing or you don't really have like a goal to reach, So I decided before I got married that I was going to get a personal trainer and I was going to start working out again and lose some weight for my wedding. And I did. So I lost about 20 pounds. And then, of course, after the wedding, I stopped working out again and I gained it all back. But I still remembered, how to work out and how to exercise properly. So when the time came that I finally left that job and didn't have to commute any longer, and by the way, on top of a 10-hour workday, I was commuting for 2.5 hours. So imagine just the zero time that I had to myself. It was basically I got up, went to work, came back from work, ate dinner, and went to bed. So
wow.
I was pretty depressed, honestly, like, and I had a pretty low self-image of myself, and I just didn't really feel like I had anything for me, which made me really sad. I was like, wow, like my husband's out here accomplishing his professional paintball goals, and he's traveling the world, and I'm just sitting at home. So I was like, what the heck? So when I finally left that job and I started working remotely from my house, I was like, oh my God, I have so much time. I have like 3 hours of my day that I can just do what I want. And it just kind of hit me like, now's the time. Now is the time to actually go for it. So after, let's see, so when I got my new job in 2018, and I basically took like a year to kind of ramp up with that and like get my job going and get myself settled. And then I decided, okay, now's enough time to actually go pursue that. So I decided to call Fit Body Fusion because honestly, I was almost obsessing over it, weirdly. You know, when you have like that soulful tug that like you cannot stop thinking of something? And it was like obsessive level. So I would be like watching Jesse, I would watch all the other pros at Fit Body Fusion. I was just kind of constantly watching their journeys, and I would dream about it at night. And I finally texted my best friend, and I honestly, like, I was encouraging her to do it because she was like in the gym a lot, and she's like, I don't know if competing is something I want to do. I was like, oh, you should totally do it. And then it hit me in the face, like, why am I telling other people to do it when I could just do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I decided I would call Fit Body Fusion back because I actually had a consult with Jamie DeBernard in 2016, but at the time, obviously, I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough money to do it, but I held on to her card for all those years. So at that time, I decided, okay, well, let's just do it. I'll send them an email. And then I had my consult, and that was that. And it was honestly like full-blown committal to it. Like I had never felt like so connected to something and something that like I had for myself since high school, like later in high school. And that was something I was super obsessed with then. But this felt so good and so right and so perfect timed. So beginning of 2019, I decided to go for it, and here we are now. Pretty crazy.
That is so amazing. And thank goodness you're here. You're inspiring so many people. You've been able to really create this life that you feel so much more aligned with. You found something that you had been thinking about, and you really went all in for yourself, which in itself can be so empowering. And how do you know now that you're on the right path for yourself? Like, what is it that you're like makes you go, yep, I made the right choice. Like, this is the best thing I could be doing for myself.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like everything, every component about it. Like my life is pretty much picture perfect for me right now. Although I know that there's still more to come, but it's like, this is the life that I had been dreaming about. So being able to wake up in my own house, not have to commute. I have my dogs at my feet while I work every day. Then when I'm done, I can go to the gym. I have my gym friends. I come home, I hang out. Like that is the life for me. Like that is something I dream at my last job, wanting to have this type of freedom and autonomy and time to myself. So for me, it's like when everything kind of happens almost easily for me and just kind of like it's handed to me on a silver platter, I'm like, okay, well, the universe is obviously delivering for me and I need to listen to it. And I obviously need to recognize and appreciate that as well, because the more that I exercise my gratitude for the life I live, the more good things that happen to me. And it's just a constant, like, the universe delivers and I'm grateful for it, and it continues to deliver. It's almost like instantaneous now. If I want to manifest something, it's in my hands in a short amount of time. And it's honestly mind-blowing. I don't know how I got here, but I'm so glad I did. And it just goes to show that, like, if your mind is right and you're doing something for you and it's with good intentions, the universe will continue to deliver more good things to you.
Yes. And you're so heavily rooted in gratitude that naturally you're just going to keep attracting more things.
And gratitude is so huge. And a lot of people, I feel like, don't understand like how powerful it is, but it's so powerful. And it's honestly an attitude of gratitude. And it's truly like you can always find a silver lining in things. You can always find something that's good in any situation, whether it's the shittiest situation of all time, or if it's something that is, you don't think anything could go better. You have to be grateful for it because it truly is a gift. Like either you're going to learn from it or you're going to gain something from it. And that is a blessing in itself.
Yes, 100% agree with you on that. There's some of the worst things I've ever experienced have been like the most impactful teachers of my life. The things that really challenged me, you know, are the things that I'm so grateful for now. And I love that you shed light on that from your own experiences too. And, you know, it makes me kind of wonder if someone was listening and they were like, I have no vision for my life. I'm just trying to get through each day. What would you say to them?
Oh man, well, I was in your shoes for sure. That's how I was at my last job. It was, I honestly had no goals. I had no vision. I had no timeline, but you know, you just kind of have to try something. If you want to give something a shot, then just do it. You know, everyone deserves to have something for themselves, just for themselves. You know, we all deserve to feel a sense of pride and a sense of empowerment and a sense of accomplishment with anything we put our mind to, whether it's crafting, whether it's parenting, whether it's, you know, fitness or, you know, financial stuff or work stuff. Like we all have something we can work for that's just for us. And I feel like it's really important that we do that because then it gives us that alignment to work towards something and be able to see that we can hold promises to ourselves and we can accomplish anything we set our mind to. But again, it's always going to boil down to that belief in yourself. And that has to be unwavering belief. Like you can't have any shadow of a doubt if you're going to accomplish something. You have to straight up tell yourself, I am and I will. And then the world is your oyster.
Love that. That is so true. I appreciate you sharing that because there's a lot of people who I know need to hear that. And I just think you're such a positive example because you've been able to do so much with your life over the last year, using those tools and evolving. And when you did, you know, commit to competing, you had done a few regional shows, you then decided to go for your pro card. What made you and Ashlyn confident in that decision? Because you said you were going to like do a bunch of national shows if you needed to. And then you said like this was obviously within a short period of time. So I'm curious, like maybe if there was feedback you guys were getting that made you feel you didn't need an improvement season necessarily, like what led you to that decision in the first place?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I knew I needed to take time off after my first show, the SAC Championships of 2019, because I barely had any muscle on my upper body and I could just add more muscle everywhere. So my old coach, Angela, was like, you know, if you get top one or two, like, let's get you on the national stage. And then I was like, no, no way I would get eaten alive. So I decided to take a short off season then. And then I did the NorCal show. And I cannot even fathom, and it doesn't even register how much muscle I actually put on my body in that short amount of time. Enough for the judges to be like, yep, get her on a national stage. And that to me was mind blowing. Like I knew that like my presentation was good and I knew that I liked my look, but you just never know what the judges think, you know?
Yes.
So after I got my third place finish at NorCal this year, Sandy told Ashlyn, she looks great, just bring her in a little tighter and I want to see this girl on a national stage. So I figured, okay, well, I don't really know another regional show that I could do before North Americans, so let's just do North Americans and see how I do. And it's really like my mindset was just like, let's try to get top call outs and see how I stack up. So did the North Americans, got first place, blew my mind. And then I decided, okay, well, I was going to plan on doing more shows anyway. So let's just hit a couple pro shows, see how I stack up again. And then at that point, I'll take another off season. And this one I knew that I needed because I could just tell, like standing up next to those girls, like I needed more glutes for sure. I need more depth. I need just more mass there. So it honestly happened so much faster than I could have ever even expected. And it still blows my mind. But, you know, you just have to take that feedback and improve on it. So with my third place finish at NorCal, I had 6 weeks before North Americans. And I was kind of like, oh my God, is that going to be enough time to make the changes? And I have never worked so hard in my life between NorCal and between NorCal and North Americans. Like I was doing so much cardio and I mean, I have to work really hard. Like Ashlyn said, like, I don't have a lot of shape to me. I am pretty much up and down. I told her I'm shaped like a cardboard box when we first started working together. And she's like, no. And I was like, no, really. Like I am. Like I need to work on my posing. I need to make sure that I highlight my curves because I stand there and I don't have a lot of shape to me. So we just worked really, really hard. I did as much cardio as I could. And We posed every single week, sometimes multiple times a week. And I think that really just paid off. And just honestly, having someone like Ashlyn believe in you wholeheartedly makes it so much easier when you're like really going through it. You know, like hour-long cardio sessions or longer are not easy to do, especially when you have to do it a lot, like 6 days a week, 7 days a week. It's a lot. It definitely gets to you. But just knowing that you have that goal in place, and it's like, okay, well, this is a national stage. Like, I have to bring my best, or I'm not going to step on that stage. So I think I got off topic again, but
no, I love it. You even said earlier, like, your macros were lower than ever. So it sounds like you really upped the game when it came to like conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wouldn't say I had a stellar reverse after my first show. You and I DM'd a while back, and I think I gained like 10 or 15 pounds in a week or two after my first. That was really hard, especially because it was really only a 12-week prep. Like, that was my first show, so I really had nothing to compare it to, and I'd never dieted before. And compared to this year, like, I dieted so much harder, but it was so much easier. I don't know why. I think it's just that mindset thing of like, it is what it is. This is the food I get. It's not the scarcity mindset. It's just, this is what I have and this is what I'm working with. Yeah. So yeah, food got pretty low. I was definitely under 100 grams of carbs for a couple days. Ashlyn didn't want to do that too long, but those 2 extra days before my last pro show really helped me get the level of conditioning that I needed. And it was kind of a deload week as well. Like, she didn't have me doing any of my fasted cardio, and I was just, kind of hitting normal muscle groups, but just a little bit lighter in weight. So I think that really all came together of like kind of giving my body a smidge of a break, dropping my food, and I came in at my lowest weight with the muscle I have on now. So let me back up. My first show last year, I came in at 117 or 116, I think. But obviously I have a lot more muscle on my frame now, and I still came in at 117 for my last pro show. So it was quite the difference. I have never been that small before. It was pretty insane, but it was so worth it. Like, honestly, when I think back, I'm like, it wasn't even that bad. Like, it really wasn't that bad on those macros, because I think it was my mindset about it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it is what it is. Like, I'll have food eventually, So I think that helped.
Love that. Yeah, I always like to ask my clients, like, is this a perception of hunger due to macro changes that you've created, or is it actual hunger? Because a lot of times, like, I see girls get like because they'll send me like their meals and like their ritual. They do like these mealtime rituals and reflections every single day. And when I review them, I'm like, they said they were super hungry today and they got a new plan, but I don't see that many changes. And I'm like an objective eye, and I'll ask them about it. And a lot of times they're like, oh, it really wasn't that big of a macro change. It just, because, getting closer to a show, or because the macros went down, just automatically it's like we go into this like scarcity mode of like, oh, it's being taken away. Therefore, it increases our desire for more food, makes us think we're hungrier than we actually are. And I love that you really pushed through that mindset and you focused on your end goal, and you were able to not just get the results you wanted, but also demand a new level from yourself. So what are you doing now in this improvement season to focus on growing in the way that you've identified you need to grow? Like, what's your game plan?
Yeah, so Sandy basically said, everything else was great except for my glutes. She just wants more mass, more depth, just more glutes. So that's what we're working on. And I'm very quad dominant. So I told Ashlyn, let's reprogram my glute and ham days to days, or to things that don't have to hit my quads. And she put together an impressive plan for me. Like, nice. It's perfect. Super excited about it. So it obviously goes back to having an intentional training plan instead of just like a general body day. Like, I'm really, really focused on the muscle groups that need to grow. And she's feeding me. She's feeding me really well, which I'm very thankful for. So, I'm just kind of taking it in stride. It takes a couple weeks for me, honestly, mentally, to get into okay, I don't have lines anymore. That's okay. All intentional. This is for another purpose. We have a different goal. It's just, our mind has a little trouble catching up to where we're supposed to be. So again, I just lean on Ashlyn when I get into those moments of, oh my God, I gained weight. And she's like, yeah, you're supposed to. So So
I
having her
love
there,
that. No,
yeah,
that's
and obviously
awesome.
hitting the gym as hard as I can. Like I'm a
Yes.
very intentional person, and I go in and I'm focused and I make sure that I'm activating those glutes and I am getting the most out of every single rep and I'm going till failure and I'm just doing as much as I can because I feel like improvement seasons are almost more important than the prep itself because that is where you actually get to make the changes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So improvement season. I love to eat. I'm a foodie at heart, so this is all good for me, especially right around the holidays and my birthday and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna be pushing as hard as I can. I really want to hit some PRs and lift heavier than I ever have. And that for me will make it a successful improvement season. And I know it may take me a little bit of time to actually get my glutes to be at a competitive level. And that's totally okay. I don't want to return to the stage until I feel like I can actually get top call outs and potentially, earn enough points or win a show to go to the Olympia. And I don't want to return until I feel confident in that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. You're very committed to respecting what's being demanded and respecting the feedback you got, as well as your body and what's necessary to make that happen. And you shared too that you had a good amount of muscle you put on in a short period of time. Was that during the COVID, like postponements, or was that before that?
So I immediately went into improvement season November of last year. I think my show was on like November 2nd. So I immediately went into improvement season. So I had a good 3-4 months of gym time before COVID hit. And then I had to move into my barn, which wasn't a good time. Thankfully, my husband and I had a bench, we had a barbell, we had some, dumbbells and some plates and bands. So I was able to get enough done. But thankfully, it was right around the time I was kind of flirting with prep again. So it was totally fine. Honestly, I changed gyms. I went to a gym that had more equipment, more bodybuilder type folks in there. So I think that really all contributed to me adding the muscle I did because I had friends who were actually pushing me. We were like, okay, we're going to get up 35s today for shoulder press. And I was like, oh God, okay, let's try it, So it's good to have folks in your circle that want you to be better because I honestly, without my friends, like at my gym, I don't feel like I probably would have pushed to get those PRs as often as I did. So I'm really, really thankful for that. And then, we kind of reverted back to the home gym and I got as much done as I could there. And thankfully, my county here in Northern California opened back up in June. So I was able to hit the gym for 4 weeks before I hit the NorCal show.
That's
So I really
awesome.
wasn't too long. Yeah, I'm thankful for that.
Oh, I love that. And then you had gone into the show, like the first pro show you did was actually the first show you ever did. How did it feel to return as a pro?
Oh my gosh, it was so amazing. Like I'm just lit up right now because
I can
it was
tell.
such a special. Like, I love the Spectrum shows, and I obviously I'm biased because I do a majority of their shows anyways because they're local to me. But I told Sandy after I came back for my feedback, I was like, well, it's been a whole year since I hit the stage for the first time, and her jaw dropped. She's like, wait a second, you're telling me that this was your first show last year and you're here back as a pro and you're competitive?
Amazing.
I was like, I guess so. Like it's mind blowing. And I don't know if I'll ever get over it, to be honest, but it felt like it all came full circle. And I was able to accomplish the goals I set out for myself this year, which was try to turn pro, get my name out there and just see how I do, see how I stack up against the competition. And I blew myself away by just being super intentional and setting those goals and saying them out loud to me, to my friends, to my circle, to my family, because then when other people know that you're going to go after it, it makes it easier for you to follow through on it. So
Mm.
just being able to go back there and be like, wow, I'm standing on the stage as a pro less than a year than when I first hit the stage. Like it's mind blowing. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And I will never, ever take it for granted. And I know that a lot of people work really, really hard to first and foremost get nationally qualified. And then secondly, some people hit the national circuit for a long, long time, like years and years before they turn pro.
Yes.
So I just want people to know who are listening to this that I do not take this for granted at all. I know that like I may not have the buildup to feel the intensity of this type of accomplishment, but I promise you that I do. Like I know how important this is and I know how heavily weighted it is for a lot of people. So anyone who is out there who maybe thought about this, like, I truly do appreciate this so much, and it's not something I will ever take for granted. So it's very, very special to me.
Your gratitude is very clear, and anyone who would judge you for that probably isn't ready for that outcome anyway. So just throwing that out there, I think you're doing exactly what you need to be doing. You're where you need to be, and you worked hard for that. You earned that. And there's a lot of people who are working hard and they're earning their way too, and it is all perfect timing at the end of the day. And now, like you said, you're focusing on other areas for growth, and some people take longer and then they don't focus on those other areas of growth later. So it's really special how all of our journeys can be different. And I remember a post you made on Instagram, like how part of you was almost like a little sad about being done with the NPC since it hadn't even really been a year, but then the other part of you was excited for that leveling up. So what were some of your best memories aside from earning your pro card in your first year as a competitor with the NPC?
Oh man, well, I would say the SAC show, the first show I did, was very, very special to me because that was like obviously my very first show. It was something that I had never done before, something that I really had to put myself out of my comfort zone like for a long time. And so getting first place in my true novice and my novice classes and second in the open was just mind blowing. So that for me, just being able to go out there on my first try and place very well was awesome. It was very, very awesome. And then honestly, I only had one other NPC show, which was the NorCal of this year, and I got third place. And so I think that really kind of fired me up to be like, okay, I can do better. I can do a lot better because I have done better. But that was also special for me too, because that's when I knew that I could make improvements in a short amount of time if I needed to and come back even better. So yeah, winning my pro card was obviously a huge highlight and something I did not expect at all, which makes it super special. And then just being able to be on the same stage as my teammates, like Maya, she's super special to me. I love her mindset. I love who she is as a person. So being able to step on stage and see her battling it out for first place is so, so special. Just being able to hold her hand backstage and just like, walking her through all of her emotions that she was going through. But to be honest, I really loved the check-ins we had at the SAC Pro this year. There was only 9 of us, bikini pros, and it was super intimate, and we all really got to know each other really well, and we had such a good time. And those are moments that I cherish so much, is those relationships that you build. And it's just so special because I truly do want everyone to do really well. I have no ill will against anyone. Like, I think the judges have a really hard job being able, having to pick out these girls in a lineup. It's like, it's impossible. Like, I don't know how to do it. But I think they're very fair. And I love celebrating other people's wins because, in a way that I think also aligns the universe to bringing me wins in my future as well, is being able to celebrate because we all have enough space to celebrate everyone's wins.
Yes.
So, all been very special.
There's clearly plenty of room at the top, as they say. And I love that you've really embraced that, and how cool that you guys got to share that experience and make so much, memories together and make a lot of the experience special because you got to be there together and get to know each other more. And what a powerful first experience that must have been for you.
It was really awesome. And so these are memories I will definitely cherish forever. And I'm just so grateful. Like, every time I step on stage, I'm just grateful to be there, especially during COVID this year. Like, I don't know how much trouble these promoters have to go through. I'm sure it's a ton of work, and they do say that, but I'm just grateful to be there. I'm grateful to have been able to be in a gym this year, even though COVID has hit and a lot of people have been without one. I'm grateful to have the funds to be able to pay for these things. I'm just grateful to be in this position. Like, it's just mind blowing. So again, there I go with my gratefulness, but it's just overwhelming at times, like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm doing it well, and I get to do this often. So it's just a really cool experience.
That is awesome. And I just appreciate you sharing that journey with us today. And I think it's just really special to hear from other women. And I feel so grateful that I've gotten to spend this time with you today, talking about your experiences, talking about the things that you do to support you in your growth, your mindset, and of course, even your relationship with your coach and your relationship with yourself as an athlete, and the transformation you've achieved over the last year and a half or so. So I would love if you could just leave us with your best advice. So maybe your best advice for someone who is a newbie competitor, hasn't ever competed before, and then your best advice for someone who's on their road to pro.
Yeah, so for you newbies out there who are wanting to hit the stage for the first time, I just want you to have undying belief in yourself that you can accomplish this. Prep is not an easy thing to do, but just knowing that and going in with that mindset is going to help you. So just work your tush off, give everything you can, have fun with it, and honestly just believe in yourself and have the confidence that you think you should have when you step on stage, because not a lot of people can really even get to the stage. I think it's something crazy like 1% of the world does what we do. So just remember that you're a badass, and you obviously are doing this because you know you're a badass deep down. So just tap into that when you're having those weak moments, or you're nervous before you step on stage, and just remind yourself how awesome you are. And then for those who are getting their pro card, my biggest piece of advice is to not let the comparison game eat you whole, because everyone looks good. Every single athlete that you're going to essentially be compared against is bringing their best. So what I want you to focus on if you're getting your pro card is bringing your best. If you've had improvements that the judges have asked you to make, focus on that. And just be centered before you get on that stage. Just know, again, that you're meant to be here and you will accomplish what you set out to, whether it's right now or whether it's in the future at some point. You will accomplish it. Just don't give up and don't stop at any point, because the people who accomplish what they want to never gave up when it got hard. So you'll accomplish it. Just believe in yourself and all will be good.
Wow. Oh, that's so sweet and just so amazing. I really appreciate you giving that advice, because I mean, it resonates with me, but I know it'll resonate with a lot of other people as well. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come onto the show, sharing so much, sharing so openly. And I'd love for other people to be able to connect with you. So can you let them know how they can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm mostly on Instagram, so you can find me at Shelby Alexis, and that's with 2 S's at the end. I try to post as much as I can there, but I'm also a Fit Body Fusion affiliate. So if you wanted to talk with any of the amazing coaches we have, you can use my code ShelbyBFBF. And I'm also a Toxic Angels affiliate, so you can use my code ShelbyB, as well as the Shoe Fairy. My code is ShelbyB. And I'm actually happy to announce right now that I have been brought on as a sponsored athlete for Inspired Nutraceuticals.
Woo,
so you can
congrats.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and so grateful. My code is also Shelby B with them. But yeah, just connect with me on Instagram. I answer all my DMs. So if you ever want to chit chat with me about anything at all, please hit me up and I would love to chat with you.
Oh, that's so awesome, Shelby. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I'm going to make sure that I put all of the information you just shared in the show notes page so that everybody can see that and access it. And you guys listening, I always have extensive notes done. I've got some really amazing women who do the notes for every episode, and they put together the timestamps just so you guys can go back and pick out those moments and find them again over and over again that really stood out to you. So make sure you check that out on celestial.fit/podcast. And again, thank you guys for subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing with your friends or teammates. The messages I get are so amazing, and I know the athletes appreciate them too. So thank you. And if you guys ever need any support with anything from a personal development, mindset, and food relationship standpoint, you know that you can always reach out to me and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. With all that being said, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.